Hello. We're going to be talking about values for this and the next 2 weeks. Going to be digging into values in a number of different ways, giving you some detail about values and how they're important. Hi, my name is Trevor, your coach and journey partner. So what is a value? A value for a person is basically something that they believe in that is a guide for their behavior, what they feel strongly about, and it kind of guides their moral compass. Think of it this way. You're looking at a map on a table, and on that map, there are a number of different destinations that you could visit, and your location is plotted on that map as well. But out of all those destinations, there's only a handful of destinations that you would like to visit. So when you're busy navigating through life using that map, you're navigating towards those destinations specifically and ignoring the rest. And such a destination could be something like honesty. It could represent honesty in your life. So if you believe that honesty is important to you, then you would be navigating towards that destination. Maybe a value such as wealth is not important to you, so you wouldn't navigate towards that destination. On this map of life, there's a number of different destinations. It doesn't mean that you're navigating to all of your preferred destinations at once. It's really context specific. So if you have a value of honesty and one of wealth, but the context is more specific about earning money, then it would be wealth that is the driving value at that particular time. And later on, you might be working with honesty as your driving value. And then wealth takes a back seat to the value of honesty. So where do our values come from? Our values come from, usually they're learned during childhood. We learn them from our parents. We learn them from our teachers at school. We learn them from people that we see in authority as important people in our lives. And they will espouse certain values, and they will demonstrate certain values, and it would communicate those values to us. And then as we're growing up from little children into teenagers, into adults, we'll start to assimilate those values into our own lives. Other ways that we could inherit values would be through the church, through religion, through the state, and those kinds of things are filtered down to us. And we then pick and choose certain values that are important to us. We can't have a case where all values are important. In fact, I'm going to be sharing a list of about 200 values that you can read through and see which are applicable to you. Many of these values are very, very similar, slightly different nuances between them, but meaning largely the same thing, but are quite specific and fine-grained and detailed. It's very difficult to have a number of different values that are important to us, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So we might have between 4 and 7 values that are really important to us, and those are our guides. Those are our absolute destinations on this map of life, the ones that we will be navigating towards as we journey through life. So are these values important to us? Yes, extremely important. Because without values, you might be looking at this map of life and seeing all these destinations and then going, I think I'd like to navigate to that destination today, and then that destination the next day. And as we move along, we aren't really specific and consistent in the directions our lives are taking. So we can be kind of haphazard and moving all over the show. And it makes it quite difficult to feel fulfillment. And I'll come on to fulfillment in a moment. So yes, values are really important. Now, do these values bring us happiness? Well, yes, they can, but happiness is not the main criteria for a value. It's fulfillment. When I have a value of, and I'm reaching for honesty again, if I'm in a situation that calls for honesty and I am honest, it makes me feel good. That's not happiness. That is fulfillment. Happiness will come from something like wanting a chocolate, getting the chocolate, and eating the chocolate. And then that happiness will fade pretty quickly. Whereas that fulfillment, knowing that I was honest in that particular situation, in that context, that will be long lasting. So when I go to bed at night, or I reflect back on my life, I can look back at it and go, that was a good thing that I did. I didn't do it to show off. I did it to be true to myself, to be fulfilling my own destiny. So how do I find my values? Well, it takes quite a lot of self-reflection. I need to sit down and consider different situations in which these values could manifest themselves in my life, in my actions, in my day. And then I would sit and go, maybe I'll have a list of 20 or 30 values. And I would read through them and go, yeah, that's important, but this one is more important. So we might have a list of 20 or 30 values that are important to me. But out of that list, it'll be that 4 to 7 values that are extremely important. Now, why are they important? A value is something that I will struggle for, I will fight for, and I will never give up and never compromise on. So that honesty, going through life, being that honest person, knowing that I'm honest at every opportunity, and I will never, ever compromise that honesty within myself. Not because I'm going to look bad in the eyes of other people, in society in general, but because I'll look bad and feel bad when I look at myself. So that is where that moral compass is coming from, that guide taking us in the right direction that we feel in integrity with. So what are the common issues around values? When my values are unclear and I don't know what they are, I can get a bit confused. I'm looking at this map of life and going, I don't know where to go, or I need to go everywhere. If everything is a direction, then nothing is a direction, and I will never, ever get there because I'm trying to haphazardly choose directions from day to day and can never be consistent throughout my life. Another way that values can crop up and be an issue for us is when we're not living in accordance and in alignment with those values. Again, with the honesty, I get into a situation where I'm required to be honest and I choose to not be honest. Maybe I choose something else instead. For example, I might be in a conflict situation where I need to be honest. And then I choose something else instead. I choose to be dishonest in order to maintain the peace in that particular situation. And in that case, I'm valuing peace over the honesty. So my value of peace will take a higher ranking than honesty in that situation. And then I will reflect back on that situation and go, I wasn't honest. I believe I'm an honest person. But in that situation, I was not. And those kinds of situations are where values can ring a little bell for us and go, something's not quite right. So again, back to the map analogy, I'm looking at this map and going, I wanted to get there, but I chose a different direction. And that's a compromise. And if you made that choice knowingly and willingly, and that's okay. It's when the choices are made unconsciously that it can become a bit of a problem. So keep that in mind. Now, I've spoken about the value of honesty and peace. Our values can compete with one another. Another one that can be in conflict with itself is autonomy. Autonomy, being in control of my own destiny, my own direction. It can, if taken to the extreme, can lead to isolation, maybe selfishness. I want to be in control of my own destiny and do everything on my own to the exclusion of other things and other people. Whereas not enough autonomy means that I'm going to be wafting around in the breeze, looking at that map and drawing myself in all these different directions, being in conflict all the time with the true direction of my life. And that brings us on to the topic of balance in our values. Our values do need to be balanced. Too much peace can end up with us being relaxed, not focused. It could be lack of motivation, lack of ambition, but we're peaceful. Too little peace, and I'm always moving, I'm always going, always looking for the next big thing. Bit of peace, bit of levelness, so that value of peace needs to have a happy medium somewhere. And as in life, it always depends. So when it comes to coaching, as a life coach, I sit down with my clients at the beginning of our relationship and we have a bit of a chat, an interview, if you want to call it that. And I try and find out what their values are. Try and find out what makes them want to get out of bed in the morning and move forward in life. And in coaching, my clients want to move from point A to point B, an elevated place with the context of that particular thing that they're wanting to improve. And that could be anything. And in that journey from point A to point B is going to involve their values. So if it's going to stress one of the values that they find difficulty with, that is important to them, but they keep slipping up on, then the conversation is going to be around, what could I do when moving from point A to point B? I want to get there, and how am I going to do that? And how is that going to interact with the different values that I have in my life? Another one could be that my value is being compromised, or I'm being asked or expected to compromise on a particular value. So I would explore with my client what that value is. How important is it to them? What that compromise is. Can that compromise be acceptable? Or do they need to put down boundaries around that value so that they hold themselves secure? Again, if we look at that map on the table, maybe the path to a particular direction or a particular destination or value is being compromised, or they're being pressured to not go to that particular direction. Then the choices would be, what do I need to do? Do I need to then accept that I can't get to that particular place? Do I need to accept that I can't get to that particular place in this instance? Or do I need to do something to overcome those challenges, those barriers around getting to that particular place? We're going to be covering boundaries again at some point in the future. Boundaries and values are really, really important. So if you want to call your garden in which you grow your vegetables and you grow your fruit, the things inside that garden that you've put the boundaries around are the things that you value. That's why the boundaries are there, that you protect the values, protect the things that you value inside that garden. I think that's quite a good description. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for listening if you're still here. At this point in the video, we usually ask to like and subscribe. If you've enjoyed this, like it. If you'd like to see more, subscribe. I'll be here again. Thank you very much. Have a super day.